Amanda Nanasy, welcome back to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Great to see you again. This is second, third time, maybe fourth. I don't know.
I need like a jacket. Isn't that what they do for like SNL or something?
Nathan keeps asking for. I'll have to go back, but people are um, they want something, so we're going to work on that for 2026. People
Awesome.
they want a gift, something to as a gift for their repeat performances here. But happy to have you back. Going to, why don't you take a minute, if you don't mind, just for those who don't know who you are. I think most people within the IDOC community do, but if you're not familiar with Dr. Amanda Nanasy, just give us a moment to tell us about yourself.
Sure. So I am co-owner of a five-doctor practice in South Florida, multi-specialty. We see primary care patients. My specialty is performance vision, concussion. We are the team doctors now also for the Florida Panthers. So sorry for my kind of casual attire today because we have a game tonight. Um, but we also do dry eye and myopia control and specialty contacts. And obviously, the most challenging part of my day is being a practice owner and reining in my 35 staff members, which is why I've been an IDOC member director for so long, because that's where I've actually learned to run my business. So I appreciate everything that I've learned from you on these podcasts and happy to help in any way with anybody listening.
Well, thank you. And that sort of indirectly ties into what we're going to talk about today because you mentioned the challenges of leading people and a team. And that's really not what we're going to talk about today, but I think it's so important to be able to handle that so you have more time for the patient care, patient experience, which kind of leads into what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to tee up the topic with something I heard a while back, and I thought it was kind of funny. A doctor on one of the OD Facebook groups, and I'm gonna assume this doctor was probably early 40s, said something along the lines of, "This presbyopia thing was a lot funnier when it was other people." And
That's
that's how
fair.
I felt. That's how I felt. I spent so many years telling people it's no big deal. Just put on some, you just got to get progressives or we'll get you in some multifocal contacts. What's the big deal? And then it happened to me. And I was like, this isn't cool. This is not
Right.
fun. This is not fun. Something that we take for granted for so long, the ability to read comfortably. But on the flip side of that, that probably leads into what we're going to talk about today. From an OD standpoint, there's a lot of opportunities there as well, both from a clinical and a financial standpoint. And maybe we can even look at it like there's a lot of lost opportunities there if we don't engage in patients in a way that's going to drive certain behaviors beyond just going to the drugstore and getting reading glasses. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Low-hanging fruit, a lot of opportunity there for ODs in this area. So maybe a good place to start here with you is just ask you about the patient experience. And I realize a lot of ODs listening to this probably hear this over and over. I got to thinking this might be a great question to ask staff, but no, nevertheless, maybe if they're listening, what when a patient first begins noticing signs of this, what are some of the things that you initially hear from them?
Yeah. They blame themselves, right? They're like, "Oh, I'm having this problem, but it's because, I'm on my phone all the time, or it's because I'm on the computer all the time." And then you'll have some of the patients that actually start making the connections and picturing their parents and their reading glasses and their grandparents. And um, there are emotional issues that come along with realizing that your vision is changing because you are either at, past, or almost at that 40 mark. And like you said, we can completely take that for granted in a busy day when you're just going from room to room and you're like, all right, here's some progressives or here's whatever. It's a change in their day-to-day life, right? They're now sitting around with all the moms and pulling the flashlights out because they can't read the menu. And it's kind of cool to be the hero that can give them potential solutions to their drama that they now have.
And there is drama. You mentioned the emotional side of it, and I think it's important for us to keep that in mind. I think sometimes we get kind of numb to these conversations because it's every single day we have people come in 42, 43, saying that they can't read anymore, their arms are too short and all those things. And to us, I think it becomes very routine, almost robotic in nature. So I'll share a story with you, and you have to promise you won't tell her I told you this. But my wife is, she's having some struggles with the stuff up close. And I think sometimes she forgets she's married to an eye doctor or just doesn't have a lot of faith in me. But I've been having this conversation with her about what they might want to do in terms of multifocal contacts or options with glasses. And when she went in, she was so relieved to hear that the vision hadn't changed a lot from before. And I kind of reiterated that the stuff up close is very normal. Why is it bothering you so much? And she said it. She goes, I hate the feeling that I'm getting older. And
Yeah,
that was it. It was a very emotional, visceral response to that. I think it's important from a communication standpoint that we remember that when we're talking to patients of this, let's face it, specific age category.
right. And not that I want to tell them it's not because they're getting older, but sometimes I even try to normalize it and say, if this were, you know, 10 years ago, you may not have been having as many problems as you're noticing now, but our world's a lot different. We have a lot of digital devices, and it does cause a little bit more strain and fatigue. And I kind of use it as a sometimes it's not just because you're old, it's because of these other things. And I'm just going to help you no matter what. And it maybe softens the whole experience a little bit.
When do you have this conversation? Because something else that comes up a lot is the early 40s, let's just say that category, but they're not really having much of a problem yet. I think some doctors are a bit more aggressive in their approach about having these conversations, and others are more passive. What is your approach on dealing with that patient and maybe even the one that's not having symptoms yet, but it's coming. You can tell by the near tests that it's right around the corner, right? Are
Yeah.
you having these conversations proactively with patients?
Absolutely. I absolutely do because you want them to know what's coming. You don't want them to just say, "Oh, it's just because of this or that, I'm doing this to myself." And I also say that it's not necessarily that you're going to wake up one day and say, "Wow, everything's blurry. I can't see." It's going to be that you start fine, and then by the end of the day, you just feel really tired and fatigued, and you don't know why. And I think especially with the number of patients that may not necessarily come in every year. Of course, that's our goal, is to see them every year, but it's good to tee up, a reason why you expect for them to come back and see you in the future, because no matter how it is now, there could be problems coming down the road that we're going to expect together. And again, they have solutions. So they're not going to go just get the drugstore readers or borrow their husband's glasses. That's what everybody's like, "Oh, I tried my friend's glasses." And I'm like, that's always the best plan actually, is to try your your friend's glasses. Of course, that's what you did. Yeah, but I totally talk about it earlier.
You talked about being patients being tired and fatigued, and
Mhm.
sometimes it's you, the doctor, that's tired and fatigued. And so having the time to talk about this, because it's not always one of our fastest conversations. So how do you carve that into your day and allow yourself enough time to have these conversations with patients in a way that again is going to drive outcomes?
I do. I can't remember where I heard it, but I swear I feel like the majority of my exam is just me talking. I'm always, having discussions with them. If I turn and I'm putting things in the chart, I'm discussing it with them. Even if they're seeing 2020, when I put the reading card down, I'll just check and say, "If I do this, does it make it any better?" And then if they say, "No, it's about the same," and then I'll say, "That's fantastic." Eventually, we're gonna have that conversation, and it might start to bother you a little bit. And then sometimes they might bring up, you know, something else. Another thing that we do is we like to have the techs kind of bring up some of these questions when they're doing their histories. I'm a big fan of just asking about contacts in general when the patients are doing the histories, when they're wiping down the equipment, make like that the point where they say, "Is there ever a time you wish you didn't have to wear your glasses?" And sometimes that opens up a can of worms of things that patients think that are true that aren't. because they think that they're not candidates because they wear progressives or because someone told them they couldn't wear them previously.
Yeah, and I think it's those things that lessens the load for you in the exam room. That's kind of where I was going with the question was utilizing the staff as one.
Mhm.
Um, the more people hear something repeatedly, the more they start to process it and think about it. And even as you were talking before about having those conversations with someone who's maybe not even experiencing symptoms yet, but it's right around the corner. So you're having that conversation. Even if they decide today, I'm not going to take action on that, the next time you're having that conversation, it's not the first time, right? So they've had a chance to process that and hopefully they'll be
Process
more
it.
open to it. And I love what you said about I'm always talking. I don't know if this is where you heard it, but I recall we did a podcast with Dr. Selena McGee, who does a lot of work with nutraceuticals, and that in itself can be a discussion that requires some time.
Yes.
And I asked her the same question: is how do you make sure you have adequate time in a busy office? That always seems to be a challenge in with a lot of practices like yours. It's very busy. Is people will say we just don't have the time to have those conversations. So she says I'm always talking. When I'm doing something, I'm flipping dials, I'm turning things, but I'm always talking with the patient. I think it's important to keep in mind for doctors who say, well, they want to leave that time at the end for education and then realize maybe there's not a lot of time at the end to have that.
Right.
Um, for patients who, as we kind of work into multifocal contacts, because I want to focus on those, you're going to naturally have people that say that they are hard to adapt to, or they don't work, or maybe they had a bad experience.
Is that the
How do you,
doctor saying that or the patient?
the patient?
Right.
Yeah, if it's the doctor, that's another podcast we'll have to do. But
Right.
if the doctor's given up on that, then the patient's probably not going to get much benefit from that particular visit. But how do you approach those conversations to set realistic standards? Because people do come in sometimes they've heard something. Oh, my neighbor tried those bifocal contacts and they didn't work, or maybe they've even tried something in the past and didn't have success with it. So how do you set the expectations?
Yeah. So a couple of things. One, I always like to discuss the difference between multifocal contacts and progressive lenses. That might be their other option, right? And historically, unfortunately, people have found that progressives are challenging sometimes to get used to. And I explain how you have to look specific places in your glasses, where in the contact lenses, it's all just based on your pupil size and happens naturally. So you can be laying in bed watching TV or read a book like this, and the contacts will still give you the vision that you need where you need it. I do say if they've tried them previously, that the technology is always evolving and we're always keeping the best, most up to date products in our office to not only let our patients use, but that we use ourselves. And I always tell them, you know what, if we're doing contacts on you, this is for the already wearing some sort of a contact lens, right? That wants to know if they should go into a multifocal. You're here anyway. We have to do a contact lens evaluation each year. The worst thing that happens is you say it's not for you and nothing's lost. You know, you have nothing to lose. Why don't we try it out? And when I have someone that has never worn contacts before and has never worn glasses before, that's kind of my favorite type of patient to do this with. And some doctors might say that is the worst patient. If I have an emmetrope that now can't see up close, why would I put them in a multifocal contact? Why? Because they do not want to wear readers and they might not want to wear glasses because they've never had to. And if those emotional aspects come into it, what's going to keep them the most natural, uninterrupting their day? Give them at least a fighting chance at getting in a multifocal contact lens. That is you doing your due diligence to offer them everything you possibly can.
Yeah, I think you keep it simple for them too. Like you just said, is keep the explanation simple, make it really easy for them to try it. One of the greatest tools we have, I think, to promote more contact lenses is sitting right there in that trial lens kit. I think it was the Contact Lens Institute that did some research and found that 60% of patients would like to try contacts who don't even wear contacts, right? Would be open to trying them, interested in trying them, and only 10% of doctors offer a trial set. So we're the ones preventing, in many
Yeah.
cases, patients from even trying them. And once we can just get them in their eye, the data's there. It shows that trialability is one of the best ways to influence somebody to make a purchase is let them try it. It cuts right through all the claims and all the education and all the skepticism they might have or they might bring in from something they heard. Just try it and see what you think. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Absolutely, just try it. And I don't remember the exact stat, and I don't want to say it incorrectly, but when I was going through training for one of the presbyopia drops, they gave this crazy stat, something like 60 to 70% of people that buy over the counter readers um, have never had an eye exam, something like that. Which the first thing that came up to my thought was we should be marketing to these people, and I have something in my office that can help all of these people. And why are we not talking about it? We totally take for granted that we have this amazing tool for them to keep them looking like they've always looked and not impacting their, their normal flow at all. And if we're not talking about it, no one's going to know.
You used a term I thought was really interesting last time we talked in preparation for this discussion, the presbyopia clinic.
Yeah.
Is that how you approach this in your office? And what does that look like operationally? And you made a really good point about that. This doesn't require any extra equipment.
Yeah, it's like the best ROI of anything. I have an IPL and an RF and all this stuff that costs a ton of money that, yeah, a lot of people have dry eye, but 100% of patients will eventually be presbyopes. And lucky for me, I don't get charged for my fit set, right? It's just there. So we did some, I think, pretty clever marketing that we put out on social media a few years back that generated a lot of interest with our patients. That's basically just explaining presbyopia and everybody gets it and it's not contagious and just talking about the options. And of course, like so many things that we do, we start these really great projects and then tons of other things start coming up and we kind of deviate. But for a period of time, when we were really pushing out that marketing, we had people calling the office that fortunately slash unfortunately had even had comprehensive eye exams already with our office within the past year. But they said, hey, I heard about something on that video that I'm interested in that I didn't hear about. And then they would call and schedule a presbyopia consult where we would then discuss all the options from the drops to special lenses that they can use just at their workstation computer area. And especially, obviously, multifocal contacts would come up.
How many patients do you see that I'm just trying to look at a market that might be neglected? It's the ones who come in and have struggled with progressive glasses or the emmetropes. And again, that's a huge opportunity there because you're dealing with the people who might not want to wear readers, right? There's
Yeah.
an emotional vibe that goes with that, that now I got to start putting readers on. But these aren't, I think, the ones who naturally come to mind when we think of putting people into contact lenses. But ha, have you had success with those patient bases?
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes those are the most desperate people that will try anything if I can keep them out of glasses, right? And again, it's a conversation that I find once you have it, some people are so grateful. And I always apologize for if someone's heard me tell a story before, but like one of the most impactful stories that I always think about is when I asked an established patient if she was interested in wearing contact lenses because she'd never worn them before. And she paused and was like, gosh, I was just talking to my husband because my daughter's getting married, and I was trying to decide if I wanted to be able to see her walk down the aisle or look great in all my pictures. And I was like, oh my God, like, why did we not offer contacts to you before? And just conversations like that have completely changed the way I practice, where again, it's all about taking for granted the resources and the tools that we have to really impact people's lives. And if you can change that for them, they are going to refer all of their friends, and it's just great for your business, and it's great for them.
Yeah, and like we started, it's low-hanging fruit. I mean, every
Mhm.
practice is going to have people that come in with presbyopia and how we deal with it. And just looking at it, even obviously there's clinical benefits, but the financial benefits as well in terms of lifetime value, average revenue per spend on a contact lens patient versus a glasses only patient. It's significant. It's very
Yeah.
significant for you to build that, if you can build that contact lens portion of your practice.
Right, and they're still gonna get glasses,
And
every
they're getting
contact lens.
glasses, yeah.
That's another thing that I mean, you can just change the lingo in your practice of stop saying, "Are you a glasses or a contact lens patient?" Like, you
Mhm.
should be both. It's not either or. Everybody could be an and.
So once you decide that multifocal contact lenses make sense for a patient, you've had that conversation with this. Walk us through your fitting process and how do you determine the lenses that you are going to use or prescribe for that particular patient?
Yes. So, it's not a secret that I'm a big proponent of the Alcon multifocals, and I'll say that everyone has their preferences. The reasons why I have gravitated to this design is it's one design that I can use in any of the modalities. And it's easy for me to fit into my routine. So by the time I'm doing the refraction, I've already discussed with the patient if we're considering contact lenses. And if it's okay, I want to walk through how I determine the add power
Hmm.
specifically of that Alcon lens, because I feel if anybody has ever struggled or felt like they're not getting the successful results that they should, this might be the reason why. So I've already figured out their distance prescription in the phoropter. I pull down the reading card where I would normally just click in maybe the last ad that they had or slowly walk them to their ad. And we always want the patients to see 2020. But what I'm going to do is show them the 2025 line, and I'm going to say, tell me as soon as you can see that line. And I'm going to slowly click in that add power. And you're going to be surprised, maybe, that they can see the 2025 line with a plus 75, a plus one, maybe even a plus 125. They might be over 50 years old, but it doesn't matter. If they can see the 2025 line and it's no more than 125, I'm just gonna like, if I have a tech or a scribe, I'll say, all right, it'll be a low add power. And then I'll continue to click it down. This is even better, even better. And then I'll get their glasses add power. But it took me no extra time to find out what I'm going to pull in the contact lens because I figured out the add power already. And then it's just doing your same typical thing that you would normally do. Spherical equivalent if they have any astigmatism that you're masking. Um, and then also if they're in need of like vertexing it, if somebody's over a -4, you're going to vertex it. That's all the same. The only other thing that's different is you add plus a quarter to whatever you were going to pull. So let's say that I am normally a -375. Um, I would pull a -350. And because I saw the 2025 line after plus 75, then I'm going to be a low. And it's easy. And literally all it takes me is telling the technician what lenses I want to have pulled. And then I let the patient know, okay, we're going to try the multifocals. I want to let you know that when you first put them in, at first you might think it looks a little bit weird. You might say it looks a little shadowy. Some people tell me it looks 3D. Just hang in there. First 5 or 10 minutes, you're going to have to kind of adapt your brain and your pupils, kind of figure out how to use it. And then we'll bring you in and do the next step. And I set those expectations too. So people don't put on the glasses and then pull up something on their phone like right here and go, no, 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 no. You have to kind of set it up. And the technicians do my over refraction too. So it takes very little time for me to actually put a patient in a multifocal for the first time. I could ramble on about this forever, but I feel like I should ask if there are questions or things that you think I should clarify.
No, I mean, that's very helpful. And what you just said, it doesn't take me a long time to fit a multifocal lens, progressive lens. I think that's really key because I think that's where a lot of doctors get tripped up is the fitting process takes a long time. And then when we've got these, especially with the early presbyopes that aren't really asking for contact lenses, then we're hesitant to bring it up, knowing it could be a lot of extra work. So I know you've had a lot of success with this. You use Alcon products. We can safely, talk about any particular lenses that you gravitate toward.
Yeah. So Daly's Total One is typically the one that I
Mhm.
grab. I am very much a proponent of daily disposable use. I have a really high daily disposable capture rate in my practice. And the way I think of it is like this. If I had a family member in my chair, if my best friend were in the chair, what would I recommend to them? What would I tell them is the best thing I could put them in? And don't prejudge. Don't think, oh, this person's been in a monthly before, so I'm gonna assume they want a monthly, or this person's not wearing a bow tie, so I'm not gonna offer them my best daily disposable that I might want to put them in for any particular reasons. Just offer them what you think is going to be the best for that patient. Um, and that's what you go for.
Yeah, and I think the simplicity and the success of it that you've had, it's obviously it's important for the patient too, because they don't want to come back multiple times. They're busy too. They don't want to go home. I know there's an adjustment, so it's really important, like you said, to set the expectations so they have realistic expectations when they leave. But at the same time, they don't want to spend the next week not being able to read, come back, you tweak it a little bit, they still can't read. It's frustrating. It's just a bad experience for them that you don't want to go through. So I really appreciate the fitting process and picking the ad because I think when you find a lens like you did that works great for you and you kind of nail down that fitting process in a way that it doesn't take long and you get better results for both you and the patient, it probably makes this kind of fun, right? Because now you're seeing people that maybe didn't even expect to get that kind of success out of a contact lens and they got it. And it's that level of, geez, I didn't, it's that going above and beyond in terms of exceeding expectations, right?
Yeah, and I love that you brought that up, because you're gonna have obvious skepticism from the patients, about how the process is gonna go. And I like to give them that confidence when I say it might feel a little bit weird when you put them in, but I promise I'm not gonna let you leave feeling uncomfortable or blurry. And once you settle after that first 5 to 10 minutes, I'm gonna do the next step just to make sure that you're in the best lens to set you up for success the next week. And that's that over refraction where, I try to give them a little bit more plus power if they can accept it with both eyes open, not affecting the distance. And usually that's that extra wow, because you're going to make their reading even better every little bit of plus power that you give them. Um, and again, setting up realistic expectations, but don't be negative. And I know that's it's preferential for me, but I know a lot of doctors say, "Oh, let them know there's going to be some compromise. There's going to be some give and take." Like, I don't like to say that they're going to have to compromise necessarily, right? You want to tell them that there's going to be some adjusting, but you want to tell them that we're setting up to do this together because I have enough faith that this process is going to work and not be a waste of either of our time, right?
Yeah, don't talk them out of it.
Right.
Yeah, realistic expectations are key, but don't be negative, I think is a great point. I think sometimes we drift into that in our attempt to be give realistic expectations. Amanda, this was great. It makes me want to go fit some people into progressive lenses, but I can't. I'm gonna leave that up to you
The
because you're much better
missus.
at it.
The
Yeah,
missus wants
yeah,
them.
yeah. I guess she needs it. So I have a lot of good content now to take back to her. I'll just let her listen to this. Maybe she'll feel better. But as always, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Steve, and good luck to everybody out there.
Thanks to Amanda and thanks everyone for listening. We'll see you in the next episode.